It is. I'm gonna sign.
Hey, everyone, I will call this meeting to order and begin by acknowledging with gratitude that we live and work on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish, whose people have been stewards of these lands and the waters surrounding the Tulalip, Bowen Island. Welcome to the Bowen Island Municipality meeting of Monday, April 14th, 2025, and thank you for joining. I'm Andrew Leonard, the Mayor of Bowen Island Municipality and the chair of this meeting. And I suppose I should acknowledge that this is our first council meeting in our new home here at the Bowen Island Community Center. So it's lovely to be here. And to all of the staff and all of the community that have made this possible. This has been a day long in the making. We've been having a week or more of celebrations. I feel like there's been a number of events that have kicked off our occupancy of the building and our use of the building, and with one of the final ones happening tomorrow. So anyone that is around tomorrow, we will be doing the official ribbon cutting. We will be having the Squamish Nation here to do a ceremony on the land and welcoming guests and visitors formally into the center. So that takes place at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Seeing some nods, if I did get the time right. So from 11 to 12 tomorrow, we'll have the ribbon cutting right here. And as I move on, I'd like to start, as I always do, by introducing the other elected members of Bowen's Council. For those of us that are joining us here today for the first time or watching online, to my far right, we have Councillor Alex Jurgensen. To his left is Councillor and Islands Trustee Sue Ellen Fast. To her left is Councillor and Islands Trustee Judy Getty. To my far left is Councillor John Saunders. To his right is Councillor Tim Lake. And to his right is Councillor Alison Morse. We're also joined by several members of our professional staff team this afternoon, including our Chief Administrative Officer, Kieran Dillon, our Corporate Officer, Sophie Insigne, as well as other members of our professional staff who may be presenting our reports and delivering information to Council here today. This meeting is being recorded, and when members of the public speak during the public comment and question and answer portion of the meeting, your voice will be included in the permanent recording. Will be available at bowenislandmunicipality.ca and on our YouTube channel, where it is live streaming to the masses right now and will be kept in perpetuity for anyone that wants to review it in the future. This council meeting is an official forum for the conducting of the business of local government. We are all passionate about our community. We all love what happens here at our home. And I'd encourage everyone to maintain a constructive and respectful tone during the meeting, and to direct comments during the public comment and question and answer portion of the meeting to myself. For those following along in the room or online, the full agenda and council package for this afternoon meeting is available at bowenislandmunicipality.ca, which includes all of the staff reports. And with that out of the way, I will look for motion, or first I'll look to the corporate officer for the addition of any late items today.
There are no late items.
So seeing no late items, I'll look to council for a motion to approve the agenda, moved by Councillor Dickinson, seconded by Councillor Saunders. Any discussion, changes, amendments, additions? Councillor Fast?
I thought we received a letter from Richard Helm before 11, or was that past the deadline?
There was an email received, this morning. I didn't see that it was related to an agenda item, an existing agenda item, or appeared to be time sensitive. So it wasn't added as non-table item, but can, of course.
Can I move that be added as a non-table item because it relates to the community center, which is part of our budget decisions. Teen center, sorry, as part of our decision today.
Okay, so unless maybe we'll just do that by unanimous consent, unless there's any objection to adding that item, which I believe everybody has received at our mayor and council email. Is there any objection to adding that to these information items of our agenda? Not seeing an objection, we'll consider that added by unanimous consent. We're back up to the motion to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion, changes, amendments? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, you can say aye. Aye. That carries unanimously. Next, we have public comments. I'll look to our corporate officer for any public comments here today.
Yes, there are two today.
Okay. So public commenters, what will happen if you have not been in front of council before? The corporate officer will announce your name. You'll have 3 minutes to speak to council. Your time doesn't start until you're comfortable, you've taken a deep breath, you're ready, to go. I understand that coming in front of council sometimes can be a bit nerve-wracking. And at 2 minutes and 45 seconds, you'll hear a buzzer, which is just, well, not a buzzer, more of like a iPhone dingity ding ding. And that'll just be sort of your reminder to finish up your closing thoughts, make any last points, and then make time for the next speaker. Okay, and so our first speaker today will be
We have Philip Carlington and he is on Zoom.
Mr. Carlington, are you with us here today?
I am indeed, yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. We can hear you. You're coming through loud and clear. So whenever you're ready, feel free to go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time just to listen to me today. And I'm actually pleased that I didn't attend in person because I would have definitely gone to the wrong building. So it's good to know that the new building's up and running. So congratulations on that. I just wanted to cover again, you read out a letter from myself a couple of weeks ago with regards to the changes to the ferry schedule, which are due to be put into operation from May 15th, 2025, following through till March 31st, 2026. And I would like council to seek urgent conversation with the BC Ferries leadership around these changes. And I just want to try and explain a little bit about it from where it impacts myself and some other learned colleagues who've been commuting from this wonderful island for many, many years. In my view, these changes constitute the removal of one of 3 of the busiest ferries that we have in the afternoon. And instead of the current sailings that we have, which operate from 3:30, 4:35 and 5:45, we only have 2, now operating from 3:55 p.m. and 5:20. And that's just on the trip from Horseshoe Bay into Bowen Island. And then I also understand there's a little bit of an impact, or quite a lot of impact, from people on the island as well. I've heard some comments from the staff at IPS for the school kids and how it impacts them. And even on top of that, we've got the local businesses who are now rely on some of those reverse commuters to sustain their businesses during the course of the summer months and beyond. And it impacts their ability to actually offer that employment, and impacts the people who are able to get off the island in a timely manner as well. I think one thing I wanted to just try and determine is to see how we could get the bottom of where BC Ferries leadership came to this decision and what data actually drove the changes. I mean, there's 2 thoughts in my mind. My first initial thought is one of skepticism, just because we all know how we struggle with the ferry and the timetable, especially during those summer months. And if we simply removed one of those ferries just to make that statistics and that data that they present to government look a little bit better for them, and that's my skeptical self. And the other thing is the data driving this is actually they feel like it's going to improve the customer service and what we actually get as a commuting service. I would like to just get a little bit more information around that, because as you know, they acted unilaterally. They didn't do any discussion with council, with any groups on the island. And I wanted to just find out what the reasoning is. And if this is a path which is cast in stone, I want to see what other things that we can put in place in order to support the commuters of this island. And it's just some ideas off the top of my head around the water taxi for residents only around these times. Perhaps that can coincide to meet with a bus on Bowen Island. Perhaps preferred vehicle loading for residents in the ferry lineup. And then something else I thought of was just discounted parking, just to reduce some of the stress that we've got on the ferries. And especially, like I say, during those busy summer months, which we're going to be, I think, pretty widely impacted by this. So that's my ask. That's my, I don't know what the process is. Just the appoint mayor and council. I've never approached council in anything like this before. So if there's anything I can do to help navigate those conversations, I'm more than happy to do that. But I wanted to make sure that at least I was going through official channels in order to get this conversation started, because time is of the essence. This kicks in next month. So that's my ask, please. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Carlington. So just to provide some information as to what's been happening and what's going on. So folks will note that on this council agenda, item 12.12, there was a letter sent unanimously by council just on 2 BC Ferries and their leadership, as well as both the staff level and political leadership, about the lack of consultation and our disappointment in it. how the community wasn't consulted on this new ferry schedule. So we're waiting to hear a reply on that. It did seem out of character. I've personally found the engagement from BC Ferries recently as a mayor fairly fruitful. I've had more communication with them in the past year than I have the rest of the term. You know, we are looking to see how responsive BC Ferries is going to be in their solutions, but it did feel like a big miss that a new ferry schedule was rolled out in the face of all this consultation. They've been here on the island, and something that actually operationally affects the community wasn't that we weren't consulted on. And that led to council's resolution to send a letter that's attached to our agenda today. This also comes on the heels of Bowen Island needing more support from BC Ferries from a financial and resource perspective, which is encapsulated in a letter that was sent to BC Ferries and is available publicly last month, asking them for support. My general line to the community when we're looking at this, it's incredibly helpful to have these stories passed along to council. And if you email me personally, I can give you a list of contacts that you would be able to reach out for BC Ferries. We're not involved operationally in any of their decision making. We are a municipality. We're responsible for roads and water and recreation. But BC Ferries is certainly listening to Bowen Island, as we've been making a lot of noise lately. Things like water taxis are really in their purview. Separately, we're doing work in helping support Greenline ferries and seeing an electric water taxi, which I believe they're looking at a pilot in 2027 for that option. BC Ferries has repeatedly said no to the notion of preferred or assured loading for residents. And that's something that this council has continually pressed the provincial government on, as well as BC Ferries as a corporation on, both during UBCM meetings, the Union of BC Municipalities meetings, as well as meetings throughout the year. And just on the bus front with TransLink, myself and Councillor Wake met with TransLink several months ago to talk about increased service on the island, things like on-demand shuttles. But TransLink is in its own financial difficulties right now. So we are doing the best that we can for transit advocacy and mainland access for Bowen Islanders, and we'll continue to do that in the future. And I'm happy to have those conversations offline, Mr. Carrington, as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Randy Poulin.
Okay, Mr. Poulin, feel free to join us up here at the front and get settled. Wonderful.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and staff. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words. My name is Randy Poulin, and I'm here today representing my family as it relates to a rezoning application, which Daniel will be presenting to you later. I simply wanted to introduce myself and put a face and a voice to the application. This is a family project that I have personally been working on for about 4 years now. We've had some unfortunate delays, as most applications do, but we are getting anxious to see some resolution and working with the municipality to see progress on our file and with our project. So again, I just wanted to introduce myself, and I look forward to hearing your comments and discussing with you further at another point in time. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Poulin. Thank you for being here today.
That is all for public comments.
That closes our public comments today. Thank you to the commenters for being here and sharing their perspectives. It is always appreciated. And moving on to delegations, we don't have any delegations. Next up is the consent agenda. I will look to council for any items that they would like to pull from the consent agenda. Councillor Getty.
12.6 and 12.7.
Any other items that council would like to pull from the consent agenda? I'm going to pull 4.3. And not seeing any other hands up, I will look for a motion to adopt the consent agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Getty, seconded by Councillor Wake. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries unanimously. Now moving on to items from the consent agenda, we'll numerically starting with 4.3, Next Generation 911 Application-Based Funding Program. I know that we do have our emergency program coordinator here. I'm just interested about not about the emergency component of this at all. I do find it really actually exciting and interesting that we're going to be building out more GIS infrastructure. And I was just wondering if there's any overlap between this emergency work versus how GIS data can be pulled into the planning department or things like biodiversity mapping, if that's going to add any additional functionality or data that can be accessed through, you know, like BOMAP or something.
Can I answer that?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that'd be great if you can come up.
For this piece. It's actually Chartwell who does our GIS that will be doing this work. And the work that is requested for this grant is all to do with helping the fire department with their call outs, basically.
Okay,
But it's all integrated into the same GIS program. It's the same contractor doing the work. And it's
Okay.
all going into BOMAP.
so, okay, great. So it's not like a whole separate thing that's just going.
It's
back
not
over.
separate, it will be a section that they can access, that fire department can access and be able to access it offline as well.
Great, thank you. That's a helpful clarification. So with that, I'm happy to, since I pulled up the motion that council approve the application for a UBCM grant of $100,000 to enhance Bowen Island municipalities GIS infrastructure and upgrade equipment in preparation for the implementation of next gen 911 service. Seconded by Councillor Jurgensen. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, and say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries. Moving on to items 12.6. Sea to Sky RCMP Bowen Island Attachment 2024 year-end presentation. Over to you, Councillor Getty, for this position.
So in the attachment, it's a 19-page document, and on page 8 of that, sorry, no, page 10, total number of calls or service are 714. That's up by 100 from last year. And there's an increase with respect to, when you look at page 9, mental health related files, and an increase with respect to assaults. So it's not, I'm not clear what our jurisdiction is, but I would like to know from the RCMP, if it's possible, if they're adequately resourced. My experience in terms of working with a number of variety of files over my work is that it's really hard for them to get proper training to be the most helpful, and I'm wondering if there's adequate resources with our the contracts in terms of people coming over from Lookout and other things that are helping them with all of that. That's a pretty significant increase in calls, and both with respect to assaults and mental health files. I think it would be helpful to know if feeling like they've got adequate resources, we could get a report from them in addition to this.
So do you want to move a motion?
Would that be an informal request to the RCMP to add to this request, or a formal letter?
I think we could just have an informal request through our corporate officers to invite them to come speak to their presentation. I know that they opted not to speak to the presentation this year, but it would be great to have them in the seat so that some of these questions can be answered.
And I would move that council request staff to invite members of the RCMP to council meeting so that we can more fully discuss their year-end report.
Moved by Councillor Getty, seconded by Councillor Fast. Any discussion on that motion? Can I have it read out just to ensure that it was captured?
That council will direct staff to invite members of the RCMP to a council meeting to more fully discuss the year-end report.
Not seeing any further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. 12.7, Laura Fitzgerald regarding concern for house sound marine life, LNG Bridgman Perry noise pollution, dated April 1st, 2025. Back over to you, Councillor Getty.
I think this is the first letter that's shown up at our council agenda, but there have been other mentions either in the undercurrent or in Facebook coming up, and I don't remember exactly, but I have heard this boat go by on one or two occasions, and I'm maybe I don't know, kilometer away from the middle of Howe Sound, and I can hear it from my house quite clearly. So yes, noise travels over water, but this is remarkably noisy, so somebody commented that they had looked it up on some sort of a Google search and that there's massive diesel engines on this, so that it is very powerful and it does definitely make a lot of noise. I would like to for council to write a letter to Wood Fiber asking them if they have considered any alternatives, and to copy that letter to various groups that are interested in terms of what's happening with the protection of Howe Sound. It's,
And or MLA,
sorry?
and or MLA.
Okay, and our MLA, yes. Well, and it could be a topic then for when Mr. Valerian comes to meet with council.
Mhm.
But I think that the comments that are in this letter in terms of the effect that it would have, and that there's other comments that there's been a decrease in the activity of the whales in Howe Sound, possibly because of the noise that this is making. So it would be very interesting for us to try and see if there's any alternative. So, motion then would be to, for council to direct staff to, write a letter to the fiber, requesting, whether or not there are any alternatives that, to this, the use of this very noisy boat. Copying it to the MLA,
Yes, somehow sound.
sorry,
I've got somehow sound.
yes.
Biosphere.
Yeah, it's for.
Okay, so I suppose all of the people that are notified originally in this letter. So there's Patrick Wheeler, Jeremy Valerian, LNG Community Affairs, and Transport Canada Marine Safety.
Just gonna take a pause, as there was a bit of winding in that motion, just to see how it was captured.
It's okay, so it's that council directs staff to write a letter to Wood Fiber requesting whether there are any alternatives to the use of the noisy boat. I can polish that later if you like. With a copy to the MLA Jeremy Valeriot and the others notified in the letter.
What would the alternative to noisy boat be?
It does have a.
Loud.
Loud boat?
Loud vessel, the loud vessel, yes, okay. So that change made, are you amenable to that change?
Yes.
To the mover, yes, and then is there a seconder for that motion, seconded by Councillor Fast? Any further discussion, over to you, Councillor Fast, followed by Councillor Lake.
Just to let the group know that as per directions, Council Carla Skuse, our Manager of Parks and Environment, and I were both at the Ocean Watch Network Zoom meeting on Friday, the 4th of April, and this was one of the topics for discussion. So more information was shared. It's an ocean-going tug, and it's difficult. You can't just stick a muffler on it. The way it's designed, it's a very powerful vessel designed to go in quickly, carrying staff and materials in for the construction period. But I think it's great that we make this request.
Councillor Lake.
I've heard a number of comments from residents, especially on the coast facing.
East
side. East side, facing Howe Sound. And it sounds like, I mean, I think one of the questions I have is why are they in such a hurry to get people from, A to B? And is it, are we all right that we're disturbing not only the marine life, but all kinds of people daily on a awkward schedule? Just because maybe they've got the wrong vessel doing. So, I'll certainly be in support of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lake. Not seeing any other hands raised, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
And that carries, that concludes items from the consent agenda. Next on the main agenda, moving to section 8 bylaws, 8.1 bylaw number 677, 2025, our 5-year financial plan, 2025 to 2029. Bylaw number 678, 2025, annual tax rates. We have our CFO, Kristen Watson, joining us up here at the front today.
Thank you, Mayor, to the mayor, to all of council. Today is the culmination of a several-month process of 5-year financial plan development. We have had numerous opportunities to provide feedback and information, which has been considered and incorporated where possible into the plan that's before you today. We had several open house meetings. We had a committee of the whole dedicated to the general fund budget, operations and capital expenditures. We had a committee of the whole meeting dedicated to the utilities plans. And we had several presentations of draft revisions, most recently at the council meeting on the 10th of March and again on the 24th of March. So this final draft incorporates direction from council provided to staff at the meeting of March 24th. In this final draft, the changes that have been incorporated include setting the property tax rate increase over 2024 to a 9.5% property tax increase. It includes removal of a proposed 1 FTE for the Parks Department, a removal of 0.5 FTE for the Recreation Department. It includes removal of equipment, including new vehicle and riding equipment. It includes removal of a proposed $25,000 expenditure on a potential new youth center. And it includes removal of $70,000 of upgrades for this room here. Now, all of the funding in order to pay for those initiatives, should they be then determined that they should indeed go forward, all of the funding is there. It's being contributed to either a reserve fund or it's being contributed directly to accumulated surplus. I think council's intention was to just hold back on approval of the expenditure side of it. So the final draft includes all of those changes and is set out in the draft bylaw 677 for the 5-year financial plan. The rates required to achieve that level of property tax revenue collection are set out in Bowen Island Municipality Draft Bylaw number 678. Those two bylaws are in front of council today, and staff are recommending that council give 3 readings to those draft bylaws. There's one more piece of the financial plan process that has not yet come before council, and that is the bylaws to establish the revised parcel taxes and rates for the utility service operations. I just wanted to let you know those will be coming forward to council at the next meeting on April 28th. And there is a bit of a time crunch to get the final reading, 4th reading and adoption of those parcel tax and utility rate bylaws adopted. The reason being that there is potential for Canada Post strike to resume effective May 22nd of this year. So I will be recommending to council to schedule a special council meeting after April 28th, perhaps April 30th or May 1st, in order to get those final pieces of the financial plan adopted. So those would be the parcel taxes for garbage, all of the water utility systems, and any revised rates for the utility system. So we will be sending a poll around. Sophie will be sending a poll around in order to determine
convenient timing to hold a special meeting to just adopt those final pieces of the 5-year financial plan. But in the interim, these two bylaws before you today, should you give them 3 readings, that will get us well on our way to starting the process for the production of our 2025 tax rate notices.
Amy Watson, I'll look to council for questions or comments. 5-year financial plan. And with Councillor Jurgensen, followed by Councillor Giddy.
Through the chair, to the CFO, sorry. With regards to the youth center, I know a grant has been applied to cover that amount. What is the status of the grant, and should the grant be successful, or that's something that council is going to pursue?
Thank you, through the mayor to Councillor Jurgensen. The status of the grant is still pending. The application has been in. We expect to hear back sometime in the month of May as to its success or not. And in the event that the grant is successful and council decides that it would indeed like to move forward with the creation of a new youth center space, as I indicated, the funding is still there to move ahead with any kind of municipal contribution to that proposal. It's there, and should council indeed decide to move ahead with that project, the staffing funding is there, the rent and utilities funding is there in the budget, and could go ahead and make that proposal a reality. At this point, it's just the authorization for the expenditure of the funds is on hold, and the funds are being held in the recreation reserve.
And what is the municipal contribution that is required in the terms of the grant being applied?
The grant proposal was put forth for a $40,000 expenditure. The municipal contribution is zero to that. It's the municipal contribution, of course, is funding the staffing and the supplies needed to operate the center.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jurgensen. Over to you, Councillor Giddy.
Through the chair then to the CFO, the page 2 of your report has a list of the revisions that were made and the redirection of various funds. Is there in that list, the 5 bullet points about, for instance, the second one, net $40,000 savings from deferring approval of staffing requests been contributed to accumulated operating surplus. Is there, in any of those surplus funds that have been referred to in that list, is there flexibility in terms of if there is a problem with roads, for instance, or culverts that we don't have enough in reserves that we can shift things around, or is this locked in now to these reserve funds?
Most of the establishment bylaws for the reserves that support infrastructure are quite clear that they're for capital expenditures towards infrastructure. And in the event that we need additional supplies or additional staffing, the costs for that would generally be required to be drawn from accumulated operating surplus, which is a non-specified kind of loose, there's no rules around accumulated operating surplus. So it can be used either for operations or it can be used for capital. So in the event that we ever have extraordinary unexpected expenditures, we would always be looking to our accumulated operating surplus to fund those. And the accumulated operating surplus balance is found on page 25 of your agenda package, and it's expected that there's about 2.4 million in accumulated operating surplus to open the year.
So that's the accumulated operating surplus. There's 4 others that are mentioned. For instance, the equipment reserve fund or the community use reserve fund.
Yeah.
So are we basically just deferring time-wise, depending on how our expenses go and
Yeah.
locked into those funds?
Yeah, we're making the contribution and we're just holding off on the expenditure side.
And is there any flexibility if we do need to take it out?
You can always pass a budget amendment and approve the removing it and taking it out.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Fast.
Thank you, Mayor Leonard. I have a question regarding the multi-use pathway. Now, where was that? Anyway, my question is, it looks like it's funded for the next 2 years, but the final year of that funding is 2027. Can you remind me why there's no funding for the multi-use pathway after that?
The sources of grant funding at that point are too far out.
Right.
There's nothing on the horizon at this point that we would be eligible to apply for grant funding. So if there are proposed expenditures, it would be 100% municipal funds that you'd be looking at to pay for it.
Great, thank you. That's it. Okay.
Councillor Saunders.
Thank you through the chair, to the CFO. Just looking at the accumulated surplus again there. For 2025, it's budgeted at 2.26, or 2.2. What was the $325,000 utilization?
150 of it is for purchases at the community center in order to finish enhancements that
Furniture
haven't
and
been.
lights. Right.
Yep, and shoot, now I can't remember off the top of my head. All of them. If you give me 10 minutes, I can
No.
look back to the financial plan and I can find them for you.
It's not critical, I was just kind of curious about, and then the 100,000 projected for 2027.
That's for Tunstall Bay for support interim to help pay off their interim loan, and it will be repaid the next year.
Right, okay. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any further questions. I have someone put a motion on the floor, please. Okay.
Right, so I will move that whereas council has considered the proposed draft 2025-2029 5-year financial plan, which includes a property tax increase of 9.5%, revenue sufficient to pay for all operating expenses, contributions to reserve funds, and repayments of loan principal and interest expense. Therefore, be it resolved, Bowen Island Municipality Bylaw number 677, 2025 5-year financial plan, 2025 to 2029 be read a first, second, and third time. Want the next part as well? Therefore, be it further resolved, the Bowen Island Municipality Bylaw number 678, 2025 annual tax rates bylaw be read a first, second, and third.
Moved by Councillor Getty, seconded by Councillor Saunders. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, raise your hand, say nay. And Councillor Jurgensen in opposition. It carries with Councillor Jurgensen in opposition. Thank you to the CFO. So I think the next stop on this will be seeing it for adoption.
Yes, thank you.
Moving on to 8.2, 1428 from 1430 Eagle Cliff Road. Application of OCP or section 4. We have Benny Martin, our planning development plans today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a presentation for you on this application. So this is an application to amend the land use bylaw and community plan, 2 properties on Eagle Cliff Road. 1428 and 1430 Splits Road. And these 2 properties are both located in the Settlement Residential 2 zone or the SR2 zone. And relevant for this application is our subdivision regulations for this zone have different average lot sizes based on if the lots are served by a community water system or not. So if they are served by a community water system, the subdivision can have an average lot size of as small as 0.4 hectares, which is about 1 acre for those acres. But for lots that are not served by a community water system, the average lot size is 1 hectare or about 2.5 acres. These lots are currently not served by a community water system, and shown here, the 2 properties consist of about 2 hectares of lot size. So if these lots were served by a community water system, they would be eligible to subdivide. They would meet the minimum lot size, but as they are not on a community water system, they do not meet the zoning regulations in order to be ready to subdivide. And in our official community plan, these lots are in the RS, the rural residential designation, which sort of mirrors the same language as the zoning. So it sees the potential for a 0.4 hectare minimum average lot size if lots are served by a community water system, and for lots that are not served by a community water system, it sees an average parcel size of 1 hectare. And these are similar policies. You'll be familiar with them for the rezoning given the application on Gardner that our island community planner has brought to you. So this property has had a proposal in the works for several years, an application made in 2021 to subdivide into 3 lots. And the application originally envisioned the properties connecting to the Eagle Cliff water system. So the Eagle Cliff water system currently stops just immediately north of this strata as a whole. So the application saw a connection to that system, which would permit the subdivision to proceed. But that connection and expansion of the Eagle Cliff system has been on hold until such time that the Eagle Cliff and Cove Bay water systems merge. Things to go and waiting for the treatment plant to be commissioned for the connection to go through, in which time these properties could be connected to the system. So in 2024, then the applicant felt like they waited long enough essentially for the treatment plant to come into commission for connection to be, and instead wants to pursue a rezoning independent of that larger infrastructure project. In part of our review of the application to bring to staff is looking at our conservation development policy. And so we are proposing the best compliance with this policy is to place a protective covenant on the property. So a minimum of 50% of the total land area is protected from development or disturbance. Given the topography, we think appropriate would be Bluff Creek that goes through the 2 properties and down across the Eagle Cliff at the bottom. A setback on both sides of the creek, and then the undisturbed bluffs at the western end of the property. So the properties themselves go up quite steeply from Eagle Cliff. There's a plateau about halfway through the property, which is where the building sites are, and it continues out steeply to meet the crown line. So essentially the blocks on the western end of the property create that buffer from the crown. Like that's the development. Where we are in the process is to introduce them to council, and we'll go through all these steps, but essentially we're doing a bylaw that receives readings and a public hearing and approval from the Actors Trust. And then the report identifies some alternatives. So one is that council may wish to hear referral to committees before directing staff to prepare amendment bylaws. So this is what council did for the Mount Gardner. So in that case, you would move recommendations 1 or 2 and not the third recommendation. Or council may wish to defer consideration of individual CP amendments. The most have been established, and those a motion in fact is how council wishes to proceed. So the recommendation is to refer this application to our advisory planning commission, to direct staff to refer back the results of the referrals, and direct staff to prepare a bylaw to amend the use bylaw and the community plan to allow for this development. And I will stop sharing there and if any questions.
Oh, so many questions. We'll start from my left here and work around the table. So Councilor Morris, followed by Councilor Getty, Fast and Guernsey.
So just a clarification, this would not change the definition of what lot sizes are for the whole of the island. And the zoning bylaw, the OCP would be a zone specific exemption. Will only apply to these 3 lots.
Through the chair, I mean, ultimately that would be council's decision, but how I think, how I would propose drafting it would be, yes, would be a zone specific exemption for this application.
Councilor Getty.
Thank you. So, Mr. Martin, in your report on page 4, when you're describing the proposed development, there's lot A, strata lot A, and a new lot. And then just below that, there's a figure 4 that has numbers 1, 2, and 3. Can you correlate those lot 1, strata lot 1, and new lot for me in terms of those numbers?
Through the chair, strata lot 1 is the one labeled 1. Lot 1 is the lot labeled 3, and the new lot is number 2.
And then the environmental report that's attached to that on page 73, there's a photograph of I'm not sure what, and then technological challenge, sorry. So photograph number 11 shows steep bank with a house, a structure built at the top of it. So where is that located? If these other maps?
Through the chair, that house is located on 1428 Eagle Cliff.
Is that on the lot line or?
On the lot line, it would be in the future in my outline, it would be on the new lot 3 that's on that plan that I provided.
Very cool. On page 37 of, I believe it's the environmental report, they have, what are they calling it here? Figure 2, I guess. And it's not clear to me where that is in the, if the page ahead of that has the 3 different lots, I believe, but, is this a blow up of that, what looks like a dividing line in between the, I'm not sure where it is, if you can help me understand where that figure 2 is located on any of the maps.
Thank you. Through the chair, I've shared my screen of that environmental report. Was this the image that you were referring to?
Yes.
Okay. So what this is showing at the bottom, in sort of almost below this blue bubble, is the existing house of 1428.
Is that okay?
The area just above this blue bubble, this is the existing house, I believe, on 1428 Eagle Cliff. This is the shared driveway that comes through the site. This is then 1430 here.
So the page above that has a purple and a green area outlined in red. So is that the center section that seems to go down between?
Correct. This is that central shared driveway through the middle of the site that matches this central area.
Councilor Pass, followed by Councilor Harrison.
Thank you. Through the chair, my question is just similar to Councillor Morse's, and because of the alternative text that may, alternative 2 in your report suggests that we could wait for the OCP to be done. So that suggested to me that this is, and from what you said to Councillor Morse, is this OCP amendment going to affect lots island-wide? Or can you confirm this is just a variance for these 3 lots that we're looking at today, the way we're looking at it?
Yeah, through the chair, I guess ultimately that's a decision for council. We haven't started drafting the bylaw, and we haven't direction to draft the bylaw. Generally, my preference is I start with the as a narrowly tailored bylaw. In some cases, it may be appropriate if we look at regulation and say, well, this doesn't make sense anymore for anyone, then the bylaw could be wider. But generally, my instinct is to make it site specific unless there's a clear rationale.
Thank you. I just wanted to be sure where we were starting, partly because the official community plan process is underway, and we haven't heard that the idea of decreasing the average lot size in this OCP designation down to from 1 hectare to 0.6, right? That we haven't heard any public input about that yet. And now we're proposing to put lots on them. I know we've got the new conservation development policy, so I'm assuming that will be considered by the OCP steering committee regarding any proposed changes that might come to us with the public input and all of that. So hearing that we're starting with OCP variants just for this location because of these situations and with the conservation development in place, then my questions are answered and I'll be in favor of the recommendation. Thank you.
Councilor Jorgensen.
Through the chair, the planner, in the report, it has a fair amount of images, and I do
trying to make some heads or tails of them. But just for my own understanding, what are the existing structures across the lots being proposed? And post subdivision, what would each of these structures end up like?
Sure, so through the chair, currently 1428 Eagle Cliff has a single family house with a secondary suite in it.
Detached or
Attached. 1430 Eagle Cliff is currently vacant. And so through this proposal, we'd see the land use bylaw change so that a third lot could be created. So that an additional single family house could be built. With the potential for a secondary suite, but the building sites are quite limited, so I think the zoning would permit that we want to have a detached secondary suite, but I think feasibly, and I don't believe that there's sort of a convenient building site or septic space for it, and instead you'd likely see, you know, a house with a secondary suite attached.
And a follow-up question to that. From the Henderson perspective, would that become 429 Eagle Cliff, or does that already exist in the addressing space?
Through the chair, it would be an even number to follow our convention on that side of Eagle Cliff. But I'm not sure offhand or whether we would be, I would have to look at the spacing of the numbers, and consult with our fire chief. Thank you.
Thank you through the chair, Mr. Mayor. It's possible I missed part of that. My understanding of that right at the outset was if they were already connected to Eagle Cliff, we wouldn't be having this discussion, correct?
That's correct.
So I'm assuming there's wells available to provide water at this point. So is that true? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So given that, is it feasible to consider an option of allowing subdivision with a proviso in there that ultimately, you know, when they can connect the Eagle Cliff, they do? Does that make sense in any way?
Through the chart, that's something we could consider. Yeah, it could be done, like council could approve it with a covenant that says desire future connections to the system. Or, you know, not desire, but like that it is required. Yeah.
I suppose there'd probably be some additional cost to the property owner at that point as well, if we were to do that.
It would, I would imagine, it's essentially if we built in the private water system. Well, that is sufficient and then transfer it over. Right?
Okay. All right, thank you.
Might be something for the ABC to talk about. My only question is around the process of it based on the recommendation that staff has put before us. So there's a recommendation to refer this to the ACP and then also to direct staff to draft the amendment to the OCP as well as the bylaw. Is the intention that the drafted OCP amendment and the bylaw would go to the APC for discussion and then come back to us? Or is the APC discussion and the bylaw going to come to us two separate items?
The intention that, like, if council to the chair, if council would remove the full recommendation of 3 parts of it, that as staff, we would bring the application to the APC. And then based on their feedback, we would come back for consideration first reading, bring APC comments. And
I'm going to need you to start again.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Yes, if council were to move the full recommendation, the three points, then staff would present the application to the APC for comment, and then based on that feedback and any feedback from council, we would draft the bylaws and bring the bylaws and APC comment to council with bylaws for consideration first reading.
Okay. I would personally love it if the APC comments on the draft OCP amendment and bylaws so that they've seen it. Yeah, so that it doesn't need another cycle of referrals to go back and say, okay, APC staff has come up with this. Can you look at it now and evaluate sort of the implications of it? I don't know if it needs to be handled in this motion, but I think it would be ideal if the draft of the amendment and the draft of the bylaw goes to the APC first, and then it'll back to council for decision after that. So that the APC is actually commenting on the substance of staff's work on the bylaw and the amendment. Does that make sense?
To the chair, yes, that's something to definitely incorporate, and I don't believe a change would be needed to the motion. We would be clear in our process, that's what. Okay.
I was thinking if we put the last motion first and then for maybe consider on the draft bylaws in place.
Okay, maybe based on this conversation, maybe 6.5 doesn't the other, but it seems like there's no major impediment into getting APC to comment on that. And I only say that because I know that some of our APC members overlap with the OCP steering committee, so that I think that there'll be like some cross pollination there of how that committee feels about you know, like some of the considerations around doing the CP amendment while OCP review is going on. And then it also doesn't lengthen the process too much by having us do another round of referrals back to that group. Councilor Saunders.
Just through the chair, just a brief comment supplementary to what you said. I think it's reasonable to try and hurry this along to one end or another, given the amount of time that they've been waiting for some sort of resolution here.
Okay, and with that, is there a councillor who is amenable to making a motion getting it on the floor? Councillor Saunders.
We decided we should read this. I don't think it matters what order those come in. Recommend that I move that the council refer application OCP RZ 2024-0212 to the Advisory Planning Commission for a recommendation. The council directs staff to refer back results of the referrals, and the council directs staff to prepare a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw and official community plan to allow for the development proposal presented in application RZ 2024-0212.
Moved by Councilor Saunders, seconded by Councilor Getty. Further discussion on this? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. That carries unanimously. Mr. Martin. Reports of committees, correspondence has been dealt with. 11 new business update to council on Metro Vancouver business. The Metro Vancouver Translink have been quite busy over the last little while for different reasons. Metro Vancouver at the most recent board meeting on March 28th, for folks that are paying attention to Metro Vancouver, there was an invited presentation from Deloitte Canada. Metro Vancouver is undergoing a governance review right now, so I had the opportunity to be interviewed by the consultants. I'm not sure where the process is going to land, but the governance review is ongoing, and it seems to be taken seriously by the chair as well as staff. Also in that meeting, there was interesting dialogue and possibly some conflict going on around Metro Vancouver's climate strategy, and also how Metro is unfolding its Metro 2050 regional growth strategy, which, you know, as a member of the Alliance Trust Woman doesn't participate in the growth strategy. However, there's differences in, it seems, in how the board actually wants to enact climate policy in the region. And we're seeing the reversal or weakening of some climate initiatives that were board approved that are now being revisited and being modified or dropped completely. There's been a tremendous amount of feedback from local climate organizations about this that's being written to the board, and I anticipate that the discussion will be ongoing. There's another conversation happening at the board level just with regards to the budget. So there's Metro Vancouver is at the board level having significant conversations about the rolling out of its DCC policy. So as most folks know, Metro Vancouver has moved to a philosophy of growth pays for growth, and put a significant focus on raising DCC revenue as a result. And there's been pushback from some of the larger municipalities as well as the development community. And I anticipate that there might be a revisiting or even a consideration motion of some of the board direction around DCC coming up in the future. On the TransLink side, Happy to announce that there has been an agreement reached with the province for the next few years of TransLink funding. It will see an increase in property taxes, which is, I think, somewhat unfortunate to the outlying communities and the small communities, but it seemed necessary to go with it in order to maintain things like MRN funding for things like our active transportation networks, as well as to keep service in the region more broadly. So the risk to small communities was that if the deal with the province did not advance, we would likely see service cuts. If it did advance, well, we would just see property tax increases. So this is expected to get TransLink through the next few years, at which point we will see some more movement from the province and how to finance the public transit system across the region. So is there any questions? I can cede the floor to our Islands trustees. Right, over to our Islands trustees.
I can start. Okay, just to, 5 of us were at the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Convention in Nanaimo over the weekend, Friday to Sunday. And there we shared a table at most of the convention with Executive Committee of the Islands Trust. So that was great to get to know them informally, and their new CAO was also there, Ruben Browning. So in a couple of weeks, we've got our formal joint meeting with them. Some of them will only be there on Zoom, but at least we've had a chance to meet them and share some ideas and share some incoming ideas too from the speakers and the sessions. I mentioned that because sometimes years have gone by when we haven't connected. And so this is a good start for that. Looking at my other notes. Oh yeah, and later this week, we've got a Trust Programs Committee meeting that I'll be attending on Zoom. And on the agenda will be things like stewardship education, opportunities like the webinars we've been doing and some of those materials, and opportunities for people to share their good practices around stewardship of ecosystems and green infrastructure on the islands, as well as we'll be discussing the trust policy statement. That work about the draft trust policy statement update has moved to Trust Programs Committee. So it's one committee that my colleague Judy Getty is not on. Anyway, take it away. What did I miss?
So the governance committee has had a meeting recently, and we're tasked with presenting some sort of an overview and leading a discussion on the governance review that was published in 2022, almost 3 years ago now. And while the governance committee has been working through and prioritizing a lot of that, there's been a request from Trust Council that we have a deep dive into the recommendations, see if they still apply and which ones they want us to continue working on. So it was, the governance committee is typically fairly contentious, but it went relatively smoothly, and we've mapped out some steps to take. It's going to be a committee of the whole meeting at the end of May, and then that will be presented, the findings from that at the June Trust Council meeting. And as my friend said, we were at the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Conference this past weekend. And I attended a session with the executive committee members from the trust who were there, met privately with Elenina. And I remember him as giving them some training at the very beginning of our session as council in terms of conduct of meetings and Robert's rules and things like that. And he also gave a very long, detailed presentation to the whole of the people at the conference on Sunday morning for about 2 hours. So that was very helpful. And I went to 2 sessions representing Bowen at the association, but also with a number of the trustees also present, interested in both how the Truth and Reconciliation recommendations affect local government. And another session that I went to was about, if you remember one of our strategic sessions, we had the Indigenous corporate, can't remember their exact title, give us some training, a half day of training. And one of the founders of that was, gave a workshop for a couple of hours on collaborative governance. 21 things you need to know about Indigenous self-governance. So that was stuff that we probably already know, but it was nice to have it all put together with examples and discussion. So that was good. I also had a chance to meet with the MLA from the Southern Gulf Islands. He used to be an islands trustee on Bowen, Rob Barlow, Green candidate that got elected. And he's published an opinion piece that has stirred the pot with respect to governance of the trust. And so we had a little chat in terms of how it would be helpful for him to talk to people before he started to stir the pot. And he seemed to be receptive to the idea, but I also planted in his head that because his background is in banking, he had been a vice president of the Royal Bank when I first met him here on Bowen, that he could possibly be very, very helpful if he started to work with the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Transportation in terms of seeing whether or not there could be a change in policy for a visitor's tax collected by BC Ferries. So he was quite interested in that. So cattle prods some people do something helpful. Anyway, that was it was a really, really good conference, and I recommend it to all of us. More casual and friendlier in many ways than UBC, and not as formal. So got a lot of good discussions.
Thank you. Councilor Morrison.
You mentioned that the meeting is beyond judge executive is going to be by Zoom now. Some of them, so who's not coming back in person?
I believe the CIO and the new chair are coming, and the other members of the executive are on Zoom.
Okay.
It's because of budget cuts that we need.
It's that conflicts with Laura being that association EGM. I was thinking about going to that, but I didn't want to miss it in person. Meetings are like two people.
And just some thoughts on ABICC. I thought it was wonderful to be there. Certainly a different atmosphere in some respects than the LMLGA. Bowen Island has, in my experience, its identity split as being both a member of Metro Vancouver as well as the Islands Trust, but being in a room with the island and coastal community certainly feels more like home sometimes than LMLGA. And I just wanted to single out and give some credit to our to Councillor Fast for your advocacy on helping us join the ABICC and making that connection and getting us in there. I thought it's great work, and I think it's going to be wonderful to be a part of that group as we move forward. We've got a very warm reception there, and so thank you for your advocacy and getting us onto that group.
Thank you, and I think they're the Lower Mainland Local Government Association is not interested in BC Ferries or water shortages on islands or many of the other things that many of the people that Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities, we share issues. And so that was fascinating. I just wanted to also mention one of the Islands Trust vice chairs, Toby Elliott, had organized a session on tiny homes on wheels. It involved the Regional District of Nanaimo staff in a workshop, and they've got a report that's going to come to us at our next meeting in June. So we will be passing it along through the agenda at that time, but it was very interesting. A number of us were there.
Yeah, it was a fascinating presentation though.
And I've got at least one person who said, "Where's Alison Morse? I want to say hello." So when I find her name, I will let you know. Thank you.
Minister Malcolmson was one of them.
It's probably Sylvia there.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Sylvia Martin.
Moving on to question period. Are there members of the public online or in person that would like to ask a question on items from today's agenda? Yes.
I would just say that thing about the noisy boat. I'm pretty sure there are laws about trains that pass through neighborhoods, and there must be laws about the noise that's permitted by boats that are heard in residences. So maybe we can figure out how to measure sound in somebody's home and see if it is actually illegal. So I'm happy to kind of hunt that down for you. If you want some advice and notes.
It's always helpful to get comments and direction from the community. So definitely email us. Councilor Jurgensen.
Thank you. Could I please ask the member of the public to identify themselves
Oh, yes.
to the council?
Okay, thanks, Alex. So it's Kathy Pecora Fuller.
Thanks.
And I came to experience how accessible the room was. And I have a lot of mental notes
Cool.
and plans for how to work on it, but I won't take your time today. But hopefully that will be a
Looking forward to
soon
discussion.
conversation. Yeah. And we can improve things.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any further questions from the public. I will look for a motion to adjourn, please. By Councilor Getty, second by Councilor Saunders. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and we are adjourned.